Omar was 11 years old when the
Gold
first
born
golden
from
tear
pain
fell.
only
It occurred on
brings
a tranquil
destruction.
afternoon. She had stumbled outside their modest home, scraping her knee against a sharp stone.
But when her
The
tears
pain was
touched
minor,
the ground,
the type that typically
something
dissipates after a few
unbelievable
seconds.
happened.
However, when she wept, something unusual transpired. Her mother gasped. Instead of water, a drop of golden liquid trickled down Omar's cheek. It shimmered in the sunlight before landing on the ground with a soft metallic sound. Her father picked it up with trembling fingers. It was real, heavy, pure, and valuable. Initially, there was silence in the house. Confusion, fear, and questions were whispered in the dark. Her mother held her tightly that night. "This is not a blessing," she said gently. "It is something the world will attempt to steal." Conversely, her father perceived it differently. Within weeks, the secret escaped their home. A cousin informed a friend told a neighbor, and soon the entire village was aware of the girl whose tears transformed into gold. Everything changed. Children who once played with her began to ridicule her. "You are peculiar. Why don't you cry for us? Are you even human?" They pushed her during games, hit her slippers, broke her toys, and watched her face intently, waiting. The moment her eyes filled with tears, they leaned in closer. The gold would fall. The adults were even worse. Some feigned kindness. "Oh, poor child," they would say, then whisper cruel remarks about her mother, her appearance, and how unwanted she was. They were indifferent to her feelings. They were only concerned about what fell from her face. Golden tears struck the ground, and grown men scrambled like beggars fighting over the gold. Her father began to collect them quietly at first. A small bowl hidden in his room, then a jar, and eventually a locked wooden box beneath his bed. Omar noticed a shift. When she cried, people smiled. When she remained silent, they grew impatient. She started to suppress her tears. Her chest would throb from the exertion. Her delicate fingers would press into her palms to stifle the sobs. Yet at times the anguish became overwhelming, and the gold would spill once more. One evening, as she observed strangers quarrel over the fragments amassed from her grief, she inquired of her mother in a quavering voice, "If I cease to cry, will they cease to love me?" Her mother had no response. Outside, her father counted gold under the glow of a lantern, while the village awaited the next tear with patience. By the time Omar reached the age of 15, her father ceased to pretend. He no longer referred to her as his daughter in public. Instead, he called her a blessing, a miracle, a rare opportunity. Then one day, he secured her bedroom door from the outside. From that point onward, no one beheld Omar unless he permitted it. Her windows were shrouded. Her meals were delivered through a small aperture. Each morning, he entered her room with a small metal bowl. "Cry," he would say calmly, as if requesting water. Initially, she resisted. She would gaze at the wall, silent and vacant. However, he knew precisely what to say. He reminded her of her worthlessness without him, how the world would pursue her relentlessly, how her mother was frail, how she owed him everything. Occasionally, he would shout. At other times, he would whisper harsh truths. And sometimes he would bring strangers into the room to belittle her until her chest felt constricted and her vision became hazy. And when the tears finally streamed down, bright and heavy like molten sunlight, he would swiftly kneel to gather them. He never glanced at her face, only at the gold. Her mother pleaded with him to desist. "This is your child," she cried. "She is not a mine to be excavated until it is depleted." But he would chuckle, adjusting his flowing robe. "Opportunity comes but once, woman, and I shall not be impoverished when it arrives." News spread far beyond their village. Travelers came from remote towns. Merchants arrived with guards. Gold buyers waited outside their gate with sealed pouches of cash. He sold Omar's tears in a marketplace as if they were crops that had been harvested, pure, untouched, and rare. Money poured in abundantly. He constructed a larger house, acquired land, and contributed to village initiatives. Before long, the elders honored him. Drummers sang his praises. He was bestowed with a chieftaincy title, celebrated as a man favored by fate. They never inquired about the girl confined within the locked room. Inside, Omar became increasingly silent. Her tears flowed more slowly now, not due to a reduction in pain, but because something within her was hardening. She ceased to argue, to beg, and to hope. At night, She would sit by the window, gazing at the slender beam of moonlight that slipped through the cracks. Her mother would visit in secret when her father was absent, embracing her and murmuring apologies that she felt she did not deserve to hear. Yet, the door would always lock again while outside. Her father counted his profits with a contented smile. It seemed as though nothing would ever change. Omar's mother stopped weeping in front of her husband, not because she was no longer shattered, but because she had begun to devise a plan. The idea emerged from a hushed conversation in the market. Two women bickering over vegetables spoke of a healer in a distant land. A man capable of lifting burdens, untying spiritual knots, and restoring stolen destinies. Most people scoffed at such tales. Omar's mother, however, did not. That night, she sat beside her daughter on the cold floor of the locked room. Omar's eyes appeared older than her 15 years. The sparkle had vanished, leaving only quiet endurance. "I heard something," her mother whispered. Omar remained silent. "There is a healer. They say he can remove the burdens that cling to the soul." At this, Omar finally looked up, not with hope, but with weariness. "It won't matter," she replied softly. "He will find us." Her mother understood she was correct. Her husband now had guards, influence, wealth, and men who owed him favors. If they attempted to leave during the day, they would be dragged back before sunset. Thus she waited. She observed her husband's daily habits with great attention. The nights he indulged excessively in palm wine. The mornings he departed early for the market. The manner in which he concealed the keys under his pillow. Then she selected her moment. It was late into the night when the house was enveloped in silence. The lanterns had extinguished. The guards outside were engaged in laughter over a quiet game. She moved with caution. She retrieved the keys. She unlocked the door. For a brief moment, Omar simply gazed at her mother, bewildered. "Get up," she whispered with urgency. "No inquiries." They took only a small bag, a change of clothes, dried food, and the little money her mother had discreetly saved over the years. No gold. They stepped into the darkness barefoot. Every sound resonated like thunder. Every shadow felt like a witness. They avoided the main road, traversed fields, and slipped past slumbering houses. The village that once celebrated her father now rested peacefully, oblivious to the fact that its source of wealth was vanishing into the night. Omar did not glance back. By dawn, they were already far beyond the village's borders. Her father still slept. However, when he awoke, the house would no longer contain his treasure. For the first time in years, Omar experienced something different in her chest. Not fear, not sorrow, but the delicate onset of freedom. Her father walked before sunrise as was his custom. Initially, he did not perceive the silence. He stretched, adjusted his robe, and reached beneath his pillow for the keys. A familiar weight was absent. His eyes fully opened. He quickly rose and proceeded down the corridor toward Omar's room, already irritated that she had not cried during the night. He pushed the door open, finding it empty. The bed was neatly made, the window slightly ajar. The air inside felt different, lighter. For a moment he remained still. Then the shouting commenced. He searched every nook of the house, called for guards, and ran through the compound barefoot, screaming her name like a man who had lost treasure. Not a daughter that he took a bucket from the corner and hurried back into her room, as if there might still be gold lying on the floor. However, there was nothing. By the time he grasped the reality, Omar and her mother had traveled miles away. Days later, after extensive walks, concealed paths, and sleepless nights, they finally arrived at the healer's territory. A serene settlement enveloped by dense trees and a cool breeze. The healer was an elderly man with calm eyes. He spoke very little. He listened intently. He examined Omar's face, not out of greed, but out of concern. This gift was born from suffering, he stated calmly, and suffering bound it. He invited Omar to sit on woven mats inside a small hut. He gently covered her with fresh green leaves, their fragrance sharp and vibrant. Then he began to chant softly, using words that were older than memory. The atmosphere felt dense. Omar closed her eyes. For the first time, she did not feel scrutinized. She felt acknowledged. A warmth flowed through her chest. It was neither painful nor sharp, just steady. The burden she had carried for years, the pressure to perform, to break down, to weep, eased. Tears welled up in her eyes once more. They fell, clear and transparent. No timmer, no gold. Her mother gasped and embraced her tightly. The healer nodded once. It is complete. Omar sensed it immediately. The peculiar tension that had resided beneath her skin had vanished. Her tears belonged to her again. They were not a form of currency, nor a spectacle. They never returned to their village. They journeyed further, settling in a tranquil place where no one recognized her name, where no one gazed into her eyes with anticipation. And whenever Omar cried, it was because she felt profoundly, not because someone expected it. This time, no one hurried to the ground. The gold had vanished. But for the first time in her life, she was liberated. Initially, Omar's father was convinced they would come back. He told everyone the same story. A girl like her cannot thrive without me, he said with pride. She will return when she is hungry. Days turned into weeks. Her room remained vacant. The ball he used to carry every morning has accumulated dust in the corner. Nevertheless, he remained hopeful. However, the individuals who arrived in search of him were neither his daughter nor his wife. They were merchants, men who had journeyed from far-off towns, affluent buyers who had previously stood patiently outside his gate, awaiting their portion of the rare golden tears. Many of them had made advance payments. They came anticipating gold. Instead, they encountered excuses. She will return shortly, he assured them. Yet his voice lacked the assurance it once had. The merchants were not men of patience. As it became evident that the miraculous girl was absent, their anger turned icy and calculated. They demanded their money back. When he was unable to reimburse them, they seized something else. First, they took his remaining gold, then his land, and subsequently the grand house he had constructed with the profits from his daughter's suffering. Piece by piece, everything vanished. The drummers who once celebrated his achievements ceased their visits. The villagers who had once bowed their heads in his presence now looked through him, as if he were invisible. The once proud man, who donned flowing robes and held a chieftain's title, now traversed the same dusty roads as everyone else. Soon even that pride diminished. To survive, he began to walk on other people's farms. Long days under the scorching sun, tilling soil that was not his own. No guards, no servants, no merchants awaiting him at his door. Just silence. At night, in the small hut he could barely afford, he occasionally recalled the gentle sound of golden tears as they fell into his bowl. Yet oddly, he could not remember the sound of his daughter's laughter. Ultimately, that was the only thing that truly mattered. I should have anticipated this. My pride obscured the truth from me. Now I find myself here alone, burdened only by my regrets.